This is a Fox News alert. Air Force One has just arrived at Joint Base Andrews. President Trump is traveling back from his rally in Kentucky. Joining us now with more, Counsel to the President, Kellyanne Conway. I want to stay on this issue and how wrong the media has it in so many different ways. We've been reporting everything with John Solomon and Sarah Carter for 2 weeks. You heard my opening monologue. What is your reaction to it?
I thought today showed the best contrast of all, Sean. You have an 8-month-long investigation on Russia with nothing to show for it, and Donald Trump in office for just 2 months with so much to show for it. He just had his rally in Louisville, Kentucky, promising to make good on uprooting and repealing and replacing the most intrusive, invasive, expensive, and expansive law entitlement that we've had in generations. And he's making good on that promise just this week by negotiating, by listening, by improving and making progress on the bill with leaders in the House and the Senate, and of course our governors who control the Medicaid dollars. And so I think the contrast is really remarkable. I love the way President Trump defied all the negative noise inside the Beltway by going to Kentucky and putting a very positive, optimistic message out there for all to see. The positive, optimistic message that he delivered in Louisville tonight really matches the markets, the stock market, the consumer confidence, a 12-year high in confidence among home builders, according to a report last week. And so he matches a lot of the mood of this country that's not being reflected, that's not being covered, because it's negative, negative, negative. But look, I mean, the unmasking of an American citizen through these intelligence leaks should concern everyone. I think we learned about that today. And, you know, again, I would just repeat, we've had 8 months, and I'm not sure that we've advanced the ball at all.
I know he had a really good meeting, and he was able to win over through some of the changes he negotiated with the Republican Study Committee. I spoke earlier tonight to some of the members of the Freedom Caucus. They're not there yet. They would have enough votes to stop it in the House. Senator Paul, a few other senators on their side, they want more changes. The president wants a vote by Thursday, or Paul Ryan, who we'll talk to in a minute, wants a vote by Thursday. You convinced that'll get done?
Yes, the president and vice president have really leaned in on this, and they're confident that we'll get the votes. And as you just intimated, some changes have been made to the legislation. That's
Even
what
tonight,
leaders do. That's right. They listen, they negotiate, they find out what's in the best interest of everyone and what's possible. And some things can change, some things can't, frankly. But you know, the president made a really good point tonight in his rally in Louisville, Sean. He talked about this Thursday getting the health care repeal and replacement done, getting that vote in the House. And then he said we're going to move on to taxes soon, and then we're going to tackle drug pricing. And the president's own words tonight were, some people say getting the cost of drugs down, the medicines, is just as important as tackling health care altogether, because this is really something we hear from people all over the country. It's just damaging the everyday affordability of life, and it's why people found that the original Affordable Care Act was neither affordable nor sustainable.
The two solutions that make the most sense to me are, number one, medical savings accounts, which I've advocated for years, and the second, I keep putting this guy from Wichita, Kansas on radio and TV. His name is Dr. Josh Unger, Atlas MD, $50 a month per adult, unlimited care, concierge care, $10 a month for a child. He negotiates directly with the pharmaceuticals, 95% discount. Literally a 98% discount for x-rays, MRIs, every procedure, broken leg, stitches, all taken care of. Add a catastrophic plan, semi-high deductible, and you're fully covered. God forbid you get cancer, heart attack, or a bad accident. It's so simple in so many ways. Is that all going to be in this bill by Thursday? That's what I want to know.
The president, as a non-politician who appreciates free market solutions, private solutions, listens to accounts like that. And that's the whole point here, is that when you have top-down government-run health care that people are forced to purchase on or pay a penalty, a tax essentially, you don't even listen to examples like the one you just related and relate regularly to your audience. There are so many great best practices out there in the free market, and this president is somebody who's listening to that and putting it in there. But we feel confident. I was up on Capitol Hill tonight with our Director of Legislative Affairs, Mark Short. We met with members of the Republican Conference. Folks are on Capitol Hill constantly. People are over to the White House, as you know. They're working the phone. So this is a very collaborative process, and it's one that I think you really see the leadership of the president and the vice president, where they did not delegate or abdicate the details to anyone everyone else, they've been fully involved. And along with Speaker Ryan and, of course, Leader McConnell and the leadership in both chambers.
I got to tell you, and Dr. Umber, in his case, he was able to duplicate this in 1,000 other practices around the country, and there's so many new paradigms that will emerge. It'll be fascinating to see that change for the better for people that now can afford health care and have a better plan, and competition will do that. Kellyanne, we love having you. Good to see you. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Sean.
Welcome back to Hannity. So tomorrow morning, President Trump will travel to Capitol Hill to meet with Republican lawmakers about the GOP's plan to replace Obamacare. Earlier tonight, during his rally in Kentucky, the president, well, he said this.
Finally, we want a very big tax cut, but cannot do that until we keep our promise to repeal and replace the disaster known as Obamacare. Obamacare has been a complete and total catastrophe, and it's getting worse and worse by the day. And yet you watch the fake media, the fake news, and they try and build it up. It's a disaster, fellas.
All right, joining us now is the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, is with us. Mr. Speaker, always good to have you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Sean. Thanks for having me, Sean. Good to be with you.
So you want to vote? We expect to vote Thursday on the health care bill, and I saw a lot of progress on Friday. Let's start with the good news. And for example, the White House, the option to impose work requirements on Medicaid recipients, block grant Medicaid. I know that was important to the Freedom Caucus members. And also the measure, which I think is interesting, is that the White House and House leaders are also increasing the tax credits. Some people don't like that aspect of it. Where do you stand now? Do you think you have the votes right now to pass this bill?
Yeah, I feel very good because what we've been doing this entire process, Sean, has been listening to our members, finding out where the consensus is, and making improvements to the bill as we've gone through the legislative process. As you know, it's a 4-committee process. In the Budget Committee, there was an effort to say, let's look at work requirements. Let's look at even more federalism for Medicaid, something very important to conservatives. There already is a per capita block grant, but some governors were saying, let me just take the whole thing in a block grant. And that's what a lot of conservatives were asking for as well. And that's something we figured out we could get this bill to do. We always had to make sure that every change we make conforms to the Senate rules, which we have to play by, to make sure that it can't get filibustered. And so that's what we've been doing. So all these changes that have been added, we're doing to make sure they're done in such a way that it can't get filibustered. We feel really good where we are. So a lot of members have brought a lot of good ideas to the table. And you mentioned the last one. That's something that's also important to the president. The president has said, let's see if we can add to the people who are getting assistance, who don't get health care from their job, who are older, maybe in their 50s or their 60s, to make sure that they're in a good place as well. So we're doing even more assistance there, more federalism, work requirements for Medicaid, for the able-bodied people. So these are the kinds of things that get Republicans in a good place. We feel very good. Our members have been working really hard at this, and we realize that this is coming to the point. The president's going to do something in Kentucky tonight. He's coming to talk to us tomorrow morning to give sort of a rally to our members to get this done, because you know what? We all promised this. We all said we would repeal and replace Obamacare if you give us a Republican president, Republican House, and Republican Senate. Well, we have that now, and we're working very closely with the administration. I got to tell you, Sean, I'm really impressed with the president himself, rolling up his sleeves, getting involved, listening to members, brokering compromises, getting us on the same page, and getting to this place. So I feel very good at where we are, and we're going to move this to the House and then go take it on over in the Senate.
Why is so much emphasis put on the CBO? They said Obamacare would have 24 million enrolled people. Right. They have 11. I mean, it almost seems like an effort in futility to keep going back to them when they're so wrong so often.
It's all about the filibuster, Sean. It's all about the way that the Senate law works with the Budget Act, which says the score, as scored by the CBO, must meet what we call reconciliation instructions. And so to conform with the Senate rules, to be able to reconcile this bill and block a Chuck Schumer filibuster, you got to have a CBO score. That's how it works, and those are the rules we're playing by. Those are the rules that they are.
All right, let me then move on. You saw the hearings today with James Comey. To me, the big news that came out of this is both Comey and Admiral Rogers both confirmed what James Clapper had said, and that is, okay, there's no evidence that any votes were altered or shifted or changed in any of the swing states that mattered in this election. The media is not focused on that. But we had reporters on this program, John Solomon and Sarah Carter. They're both saying, in fact, there was surveillance of the server at Trump Tower. There was a FISA warrant about the overall Russian investigation, not about Trump. And while he's willing to admit one investigation is going on, he's not willing to admit another in terms of leaking. He says, well, it's common practice. We don't acknowledge that. Is that troubling to you?
Well, look, that's why we have an Intelligence Committee investigation. So the point is, the president asked for this, and we already had an Intelligence Committee investigation going on before all of this. And so that's why I think Chairman Nunes and his ranking member and Chairman Burr over in the Senate and his ranking member are going to see to the bottom of this and get through everything all Russia related. I didn't watch the hearing because I've been actually busy doing my job, but I've had briefings from Comey. I don't think we learned anything new here, and it only confirmed what we've been saying all along. But at the end of the day, we'll get to the bottom of all of this stuff, the questions you just raised with the Intelligence Committee investigation that's ongoing.
Last question, back to health care. Is the Freedom Caucus on board? Well, have you talked to them? Because Dave Bratt earlier today said 40 members were not going to vote for the bill, and Rand Paul said the same. Yeah, well, I've spoken with many of them. I haven't spoken to every one of them. I talked to a lot of members. We've got 230-some members here. But the Freedom Caucus members that have had this vote in committee have already voted for it. One of the ones that didn't vote for it in the Budget Committee has now come out in favor of it since then. So we've had Freedom Caucus members already voting for it in committee, and one of them who didn't is now in favor of it because of the work requirements, because of the additional layers of federalism. So I've spoken with a lot of Freedom Caucus members who are voting for it. We also have the largest conservative caucus here, the Republican Study Committee. That's the biggest conservative caucus we have in Congress. Their leader and their key members came out in favor of it with President Trump in the Oval Office on Friday. And so we're making tremendous progress. We feel very good. And it's because we've been negotiating, listening to one another, improving this bill, making refinements to it so that we get to the sweet spot of a consensus bill that can pass. The key, it doesn't make any difference if you can't repeal and replace it, if you can't pass it. So we're getting a bill that can pass, that repeals and replaces Obamacare. Okay. And this is just one piece of the three things we're going to do. And you are confident that the bill in the Senate will be similar? You've been... Yeah, the bill in the Senate will be similar, but we want them to improve it if they can. We think, because their rules are a little different once it gets over there. So if senators can make improvements to this bill without jeopardizing what we call the Byrd rule, meaning a filibuster, that's great. We want them to improve this bill if they can. All right, Mr. Speaker, I know you're busy. Thanks for being with us. Thank you, Sean.
Judge Neil Gorsuch's hearing is now underway in the Senate, and I urge members of both parties to swiftly approve his nomination. He is an outstanding man from an outstanding family with an unbelievably wonderful wife. They should approve.
That was the president earlier tonight at his rally in Louisville, Kentucky, talking about Judge Neil Gorsuch. Joining us now with reaction from the American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulow, Fox News contributor, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. You know, we use the term borking. We remember Clarence Thomas, high-tech lynching. This man is now going to be smeared, slandered, besmirched, his character assassinated by the same guys that supported him for the 10th Circuit. Yeah, 10 years ago when he came up to be voted on, I think it was a voice vote, unanimous approval, 99-0. So what are they going to come up and say, we disapprove of you because of the last 10 years? They have to be very specific instead of these very nebulous things. And when you have the far left that are coming out and saying any of the Democrats that support him, we're going to primary you. Well, look, if they get in the way and become such judicial, obstacles and everything for this president to get this Supreme Court nominee through, guess what's going to happen to them in 2018? And furthermore, I don't want to hear anything else about the gentleman that President Obama nominated, because it was Joe Biden and also Chuck Schumer that said no president should be allowed to bring someone in their final year. It's not good when it comes, your own rules come back to bite you. And speaking of which, Jay, maybe Joe Manchin, maybe Claire McCaskill's because she's scared to death about 2018, not because she wants to. I don't see the votes necessary to get over cloture, so I see a nuclear option, and he will be on the Supreme Court.
Well, I will tell you this, whether they have to utilize a nuclear option or not, I will tell you this without any question, that Judge Gorsuch will be Justice Gorsuch in about 3 or 4 weeks, maybe even sooner than that. Look, this guy's got, I'm biased. We've had a case before him, and the case came out well, and came out well, by the way, at the Supreme Court, where based on his decision, we won the case 9-0. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for Judge Gorsuch. I'm looking forward to appearing before him when he's at the Supreme Court. Do I think that the Democrats are going to make this a party line situation? Yes. The rules are never this, the truth is, Republicans will give the benefit of the doubt, so to speak, to the president's nominees. I'll say it a little more bluntly. Republicans are suckers.
Seriously.
Yeah, well,
they are just never underestimate the ability of Republicans to cave, and they have no backbone. So let's be real here.
Yeah, no, I completely concur, and that's why you end up with every one of these Supreme Court fights become exactly that, a Supreme Court fight. It shouldn't be. This should be this man is so eminently qualified that the American Bar Association, not exactly a conservative organization, gave him the highest rating.
Yeah. All right. Let me go back to our lead story from earlier tonight, and that is James Comey. And here we've all these months, Clapper, Comey, Admiral Rogers, all said no evidence at all. I mean, at what point do we say this is ridiculous?
Well, we should be saying that right now. And the thing is, what's so incredible to me is how the media said nothing when President Obama leaned over and said, after my reelection, I'll have more flexibility to Russian President.
Oh, I got that tape. I'll play it.
Absolutely. They said nothing when Hillary Clinton was involved with the uranium deal with Russia. They continue to say nothing when, you know.
Wait a minute. That uranium deal, remember, they made millions.
Yes.
While she was Secretary of State, he's given speeches in Moscow. Okay. And the uranium deal that results in 20% of American uranium in the hands of a Russian company, and Hillary personally approved it.
You're absolutely right. And you already brought up the issue of the Obama campaign operatives and the $300,000 from the State Department, our taxpayer money that went toward, you know,
unseating
Bibi Netanyahu.
Yep.
So again, it's this hypocrisy alert that we see going on, and we need to have Republicans to stand up and say, time out on the court. No more of this. We're going to move on, and we're going to do the things that are necessary to implement the legislative agenda of this president.
Jay?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you this. There was a couple of takeaways that should be the top line of the media. It won't be. Number one, no collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians per se. I mean, there was no evidence of that. Number two,
no impact on the election.
NSA, nothing. As far as any vote switching or interfering with an actual vote in any state. Number two. Number three, the thing that I am so concerned about is the Department of Justice, the FBI reports to the Department of Justice, part of the Department of Justice. The FBI director today, with not saying whether there's an investigation of the leaks, but saying that there's an investigation of Trump associates, this is a double standard that reaches a new level of hypocrisy.
Thank you.
And then couple that with, I'll tell you something else, Sean. We have to be concerned that the FBI has become this political. I don't care if you're a Republican, Democrat, or Independent. In the United States of America, in a constitutional republic, not acceptable.
In one appearance, say, we don't comment on ongoing investigations. Comment on one, but not the other. And you're right. Clapper, Admiral Rogers, and James Comey today, they all stated the same thing. No impact on any votes in any of those states that mattered in this election. That
should be the top line. That should be the top line in this whole discussion. It won't be because of the media, but I'll tell you at the end of the day, and this is what we've got to look at here. We're a constitutional republic. It's the rule of law, and you cannot have the FBI
politicized. Is it time for Comey to go?
That creates a constitutional... Oh, I think so. Listen, he's created his own constitutional crisis,
real quick, I'm out of
and
time.
The country's having to pay for that.
Yes, I think it's time for him to go. The most important thing is we cannot have the leaks of classified information to the New York Times.
You won't even acknowledge that he's investigating. We know that's a felony. That is just like he never finished with Hillary and the server, and Hillary with the foundation. All right. Good to see you in studio, by the way.
Pleasure.
Appreciate you always being here. Jay, thank you as always.
We are going to drain the swamp of government corruption in Washington, D.C. And we are going to keep our promises, all of the promises that we made. We are going to massively reduce your taxes. We are going to reduce very substantially rising crime and support the incredible men and women of law enforcement.
That was the president earlier tonight at his rally in Louisville, Kentucky. Joining us now with reaction, former Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski and Salem nationally syndicated radio talk show host Larry Elder. You know what I love Larry more than anything else about when the president goes on the road? A, he calls out fake news. B, he reiterates